All right, all right. Here we go. Episode 9 of Hitting the Road. Pretty excited about this one. I feel like I've got a really exciting, really strong guest here. I've got Chad Karger. Chad, you are co-executive director and a porter at Porter's Call in Franklin, Tennessee. Chad, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Nate. Thanks for having me. And yeah, it's a pleasure. I'm so excited to be on here with you.
Absolutely. Well, we were talking before we popped on, and while we work, our parent company, Nashville Vans, we work with a lot of artists and people in the artist community.
Mhm.
You guys work with specifically artists and people in the artist community. I mean, this is what you do at
Yeah.
Porter's Call, and it's pretty exciting work. The more I've kind of dug into it a little bit with what you all are doing, but I wanted to just take a time, take some time and really have you just first and foremost introduce yourself and kind of who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So yeah, my name is Chad. I've been at Porter's Call for about 8 years, and Porter's Call has existed for almost 25 years. So I found my way here after doing some work. I was actually living in Houston at the time and doing quite a bit of work in sort of the counseling space, specifically with leaders in that city and in that region. And a friend of mine, Al Andrews, who actually was in the faculty at the university where I got my master's in counseling, that's where we met. That was like 1994, 95. And then in 2001, Al had relocated to Nashville, and with the encouragement of a few people inside of the music industry, his private practice as a counselor turned into the nonprofit that we call Porter's Call. And so Porter's Call has been around since 2001. I came in 2017 kind of as a way to begin planning for Al's retirement, which occurred last May.
Okay.
And that was kind of when myself and my colleague, Beth Barkus, who's my co-executive director, we took the reins at that point and worked closely with our board and our staff here in downtown Franklin. Yeah.
Okay. Great. No, I love that. And so you mentioned Al, before, and he had founded that, 20 plus years ago now.
Yeah.
But there's a story there as well, right? I mean, he
Yeah.
had a kind of a conversation with someone that was a
Yep.
pretty profound, or so someone in the industry that said, "Hey, we believe in the work that you are capable of doing."
Yep.
And that was Peter York with Sparrow Records. Does that sound
That's
familiar? Is that
right, man. It's a massively important story. Thank you for asking. I mean, Bill Hearn and Peter York they're incredibly important to the beginning of this organization, and in a lot of ways, not least of which because they could see in 2001 the need for the care for touring artists and their spouses or partners. And so these are two men in the Christian industry specifically. They came to Al and said, "Hey, what if we were to basically purchase 1 day a week on your calendar, and we then, pointed artists to come see you free of charge?"
mm, wow.
And so I was like, "Yeah, let's try that." Well, one day became 2 days, and eventually his whole week, and that's what kind of was the inflection point for the organization. And what's so cool about Bill and Peter, and Al as well, was, Bill and Peter both were in particular labels at the time. But when they asked Al to do this, they asked Al to do it for any artist who reached out to him. So they weren't doing it just for their tribe,
Sure.
just for their um, artists. They were doing it. They just saw a need in the industry. And again, it's phenomenal. We have to stop and appreciate the fact that in 2001, the way we spoke about and talked about mental health needs, specifically within the industry, was much different, right? The conversation wasn't nearly as robust as it is now in 2025. And so these are three pioneering people who not only just were kind of entrepreneurial in starting this, it was just really the spirit of generosity and care and compassion. So for 25 years almost, that'll be next year, for 24 years, um, touring artists and their spouse or partner can come and receive very tailored, one-on-one care free of charge. No one's ever been charged anything for the services that we provide.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Well,
It is
and before
incredible.
before you and I, kind of popped on here, we were talking about there's a difference between
Mhm.
the counselor and the porter. So for somebody that maybe is getting introduced to your work for the first time, what's the difference? And where's
Mhm.
where's kind of that separating?
It's a great question. This is actually a really important question because we work with a lot of counselors really around the country in situations where artists need more acute or specific care or specialized care. We turn to our colleagues in the professional space who can really dial it in on those fronts. So I want to make a really clear distinction. That's not what we're doing. So I'll start by just kind of telling the story. I was on a plane one time, and I don't typically do a lot of visiting when I'm on the plane. I typically put my earbuds in and read a book or go to sleep or pretend I'm sleeping. And a lady asked me sitting next to me, she's like, what she was, I was flying back to Nashville, and she asked me what did I do for a living? And I just said to her in an effort to keep the conversation short, I said, I'm a porter. And she said, well, what's a porter? And I said, I help carry heavy things for people.
I love that.
Which
Yeah,
is that is kind of when, if you go
sure,
hike Kilimanjaro in Africa, they send porters with you. The porters carry the stuff up the mountain for the people trying to hike Kilimanjaro.
sure,
But for us, a porter is in a sense we're carrying we're helping distribute the weight of this heavy lifestyle that our friends who are touring artists or their spouse or partner carry while they're in your vans touring the country. The
sure.
name came from in the Benedictine monastery, so a long time ago. The porter was a person who was in charge of hospitality in the monastery. So he wasn't a porter. He kind of tended the gate and welcomed guests. Guests would come to the monasteries. The porter would feed them, encourage them, maybe give them some wisdom,
That's good.
help them find their way, and then see them on their way. And so that's kind of our namesake. That's the idea. We're, not running a monastery over here, but we are meeting a lot of people who are on their way, right?
Yeah,
And they're on their way as a tour, they're on their way in their career, they're on their way on personal levels in their own journey, in marriage and relationships with kids. And so the artists come here, the touring artists and their spouse or partner come here, and they find people who are helping them carry the weight of their life
man.
as it relates to this really unique thing they do, which is touring around the country, standing on stages and bearing their soul, night after night. So,
Sure. Yeah, and that's it is a different it's a different set of skills that these people obviously bring to the workforce. I mean, they've got a different, like you said, they're traveling night in, night out. They're playing in front of, hundreds, if not thousands of people. And I guess here's some of my curiosity because it is such a different set of skills that they bring and everything. What because I want to be clear too. I don't want to paint with too broad a brush. So if I do that, I want you
yeah.
to have permission to rein me in a little bit.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Because these are things that probably most people struggle with.
Hmm.
Marital issues,
Yep.
maybe, chemical dependency or,
Yep.
things like this. And that could be anyone. But I
Yep.
guess in your work and the work that your staff is doing, what do you feel like is something that you see maybe time and time again that are recurring, in
Hmm.
the artists that you're working with?
Well, it's, part of the reason why we work as porters and as counselors is because that allows us to really, we can go to an artist's home. We could even meet them on the road. Um, we can meet people who don't live in this area. So in the Nashville area, so we meet artists on both coasts and sometimes around the world in terms of just engaging them and helping them. And probably, like you said, no doubt, the human struggle is the human struggle, no matter
Mhm.
what you do for your vocation, right? But all of us would agree that particular vocations create unique circumstances that can really exacerbate and accentuate certain struggles
Sure.
um, for people. And when you think about it, probably most people don't fully anticipate that a person who's standing on stages performing every night experiences loneliness.
Mm.
It can be a profoundly lonely job.
Yeah.
And especially when you think about the fact that when the show's over and they load out and they get back in the van and they drive to the next town, they're basically showing up. They're both known, but they're also strangers. It's not like the same as when they arrive home and they're with their family and their
Sure.
friends, right? So that's definitely one of the things. And then another thing that gets really accentuated and ramped up inside the industry is just the uncertainty around career success. Like
Hmm.
if you're an accountant, you kind of know what you need to be doing to hit the mark, right? You do what an accountant does around tax season. You balance the books for your client. You give them monthly forecasts on their budget. So you kind of check it off as you go. But for a recording artist who's touring their music, it's really difficult to know if you're being successful other than the fact that you either are making a little money or you're breaking even on a
Sure.
tour or losing money, which,
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so much uncertainty around sort of what is defined as their successful career that it does kind of ignite a lot of anxiety and difficulty in terms of just persisting in it. I would say maybe another thing, if I can just add one more, and our founder Al Andrews, he's famous for saying this, but he has said before, and I couldn't agree more with this, but the human soul is not made for fame. And so this is one of those things where probably unlike my friends who are accountants, they're not living with the objectivity that happens to a person when they become famous. So this is both something that artists can say, I guess I'm being successful now because a lot of people know me. I have thousands of followers on Instagram and TikTok, and I'm selling out a club or a theater or an arena. But as they will quickly find out that that fame has a price,
Mm.
we think about around here, Porter's Call, we think of fame as being something to manage and to anticipate and to be aware of, not something to work toward and aspire.
Sure.
Because it just is, we're just not made for it. I mean,
Sure.
I can go to the grocery store in total anonymity and nobody knows who I am. Nobody's going to bother me. And there's a certain luxury and privilege in that. My friends who can't do that with their families on vacation, just go get lunch with a friend. I mean, it's just you get boxed in, and again, we're back to loneliness and anxiety and that sort of thing. So,
Yeah. No, and you actually you snatched one of the questions right out of my mouth because I almost word for word had it written that the human soul, was not made for fame,
yeah,
which I think really kind of is counterintuitive to why people come to Tennessee or to Nashville, Tennessee, I should say, or
yeah,
Los Angeles or New York City, wherever
yeah,
that may be. That there's a certain desire to be seen as unique,
yeah,
and to stand out from everyone else, right?
yeah,
And it's a competitive town. I mean, all these things, right?
mm,
And so, I mean, I'm going to take this back. I told you, that probably back in 2012, 2013, I would go to a Bible study there down on Music Row, and there were
mhm,
a lot of great guys there, and there were a lot of great relationships that were developed there over the years, and a lot of those guys have gone on and had great success.
mm,
But there were times where when we talked about just that laying down your life kind of thing.
mhm,
What does that look like? Okay. And without just getting too, I'm not going to get too scriptural or biblical here, but
yeah,
but there were a lot of guys that were just very confessional
mm,
that they would say, I need about 5 years to taste and touch and to just everything that may or may not be coming my way.
mm,
Which that mindset was, it kind of blew my mind. That was like, I know that there's going to be temptation. I need to see about that,
yeah. That's
which is crazy, right? I
yeah.
mean,
It's a when you when you press someone to talk about something like that so openly,
Yeah.
and you see the process that they're kind of going through as they think about what's in front of them, a normal person may be like, well, you don't have to go anywhere near that. It's not even worth the risk of getting out there,
Sure.
right? But this is another thing. This to me you bring up a really great point. I mean, I absolutely love listening to music. I don't have a very long commute. I live right down here in Franklin, but I usually listen to music in my commute. I might listen to music just over, at home, or while I'm working out or whatever. And so music is a part of my life. It's
Mm,
it's it's a part of the soundtrack of like my family's life. I have three kids, and growing up, they remember certain trips and places because of certain songs. They're like the background.
sure.
And so you have artists who are performing their original music, and all of us want them to do that, right? I mean, none of us, all of us want them to pursue their passion and hopefully pursue it in a healthy way,
Yeah.
right? And so you wouldn't take that away from anyone. And so when they're kind of at the beginning of their career and they're hearing about what lies ahead, they're kind of weighing this thing like, this is my passion. This is, for some of them, they talk about being called to do something
Sure.
like this, right? And then, but I know that this is going to take me into spaces that are pretty tricky, for me as a human, especially me as a person who's married or in a committed relationship with a family. And so there's certain challenges that they're assuming, to pursue their passion.
Sure.
And that's right at the heart of so much of the work that we do. Sometimes we don't just meet with one, like the artist or their spouse partner. We sometimes meet with them both. We'll actually
Yeah.
do work with them as a couple just to be really helpful to them in real practical ways to navigate those
Sure.
kinds of spaces. Yeah.
Sure. Well, and let me ask you this. And again, we're not ever going to get specific here, right? But
Yeah.
with anybody. But my curiosity is, uh do you see some self-sabotage
Mm,
sometimes? And let me tell you what I mean by that.
okay.
Um, I think sometimes with the human experience, the art is so closely tied to the
Mm,
human experience. And so if I'm not in pain, I don't have anything to like, I don't have anything to write about. If I'm not using,
yeah.
I don't have anything to write about. Um, and there's almost probably this mindset that like my art is so closely just so married
Hmm.
to my the reality
Hmm.
that comes like do you see some of that where it's just like I almost have to cause some tension or some drama to get
Yeah.
the artistic side of me fired up.
Yeah. I think probably the way I see it, what you're hinting at there, what you're describing, the way I see it is that by the time a person, say, comes to Porter's Call and says, "Okay, look, I need help. I'm not in a great space, or I need help, um, just kind of with my life overall in general." I think when you begin to pursue health with
Hmm.
that person
Yeah,
and you begin to address things that are maybe not so healthy, there are choices that are they're making, or they're unaddressed mental health issues in their life, or medical issues, even more generally. When you begin to sort of draw close to those things and start to talk about those things, you do sometimes run into that question, which is, if I am healed in this, or if I get better in this, or if this struggle is no longer a part of my life, is that intricately connected to my creative instinct, so that my creativity will go away if we, really get serious about this. And it definitely is, um, it is something that we do talk a lot about with artists, is that we hold out hope and have a vision that they are a creative person, and that creativity is only going to flourish as they become more aware of themselves and their
oh
body and their needs, and get healthier. We think they're going to flourish. We think that their best days as an artist are ahead of them if they pursue that path, versus if they just continue to spiral into things that are unhealthy for them and destructive.
yeah, no, absolutely. And well, so look, I want to kind of shift. I know that with the work that you're doing now, I mean, how many people do you all have on staff? And typically speaking, what are their qualifications as you
Yeah.
bring them on, because obviously you all are dealing with a pretty niche,
Hmm.
client base, right? So who is your team? What are you looking for, in a
Yeah.
porter?
That's a great question. We have 8 people on staff, um, and 3 of those people are kind of more in the administrative, kind of organizational side of things. One of them we call our hospitality coordinator, and Mara is her name. She basically is the first point of contact for anyone who's seeking to set up an appointment here at Porter's Call. So she kind of walks them through that whole process of eligibility and how to make an appointment and all that. And then we have five of us who are actually doing what we call the portering, and basically it is a good question. It is a little bit like finding a needle in the haystack because we actually do want porters to have experience and training in the art and vocation of counseling. So education and just repetitions, years of experience in the counseling office. But when they come work here, they aren't working under the licensure of that all that hard work. So they, in a sense, lay down this certification that they have to then step into this space. And as I said earlier, their willingness to do that really opens up some avenues of care with us and the artist that we can provide the artist and their spouse or partner, that as licensed professional counselors, they're not allowed to do.
Okay.
And so the person that's qualified to be here has to be willing to do that and have kind of a desire to work in those kinds of spaces with the artist or their spouse or partner. So,
Okay. Okay, great. And I want to kind of frame something too. So, and this is going to sound ridiculous. But I was in Dallas, Texas more than a decade ago. I was not married at the time. But I was about to move to Nashville. And so I remember there was a friend of mine, he's, a songwriter in Nashville now, but he had come home to play a show in Dallas. He wanted me to pop up on stage and sing, which was, it was outside of my comfort zone, but I was willing to let it fly. It
mhm.
was it was, bad karaoke at best, but I got up there and I just gave it my best. And I remember coming off stage. It was, small place, 50 people.
Mhm.
And I remember this waitress kind of just snuck up into my ear and told me how incredible I was. Now, as a single guy,
You were like,
man, my mind was just boom, it was just like, wow, like there may be something here. Like I may have to figure music out.
yeah,
And but I say all that to say, it was kind of like, and again, nothing, I just kind of was like, thank you very much and moved on.
yeah,
Um, for a lot of artists, I think, especially if you look at, you got a band that goes on at 7:30, a band that goes on at 9, a band that goes on at 10. Maybe they play 90 minutes to, 2 hours,
yeah,
they midnight, 1 in the morning, and the party's just starting.
yeah,
And, for a lot of them, married or otherwise, you've got people coming up to you and glorifying you really.
yeah,
Just like, you were incredible. And they
yeah,
want to kind of touch the
yeah,
robe a little bit, or
yeah,
whatever. And for a lot of artists, the party just started.
yeah.
The party just started, and you're just now getting ramped up.
Hmm.
And I know that even the most faithful husbands that have been in music, the most just morally, just kind of engaged. I mean, still there is that there is that whisper,
Yeah,
that like, hey man, you need to kind of, press on this a little bit.
yeah,
And so do you find, I know that you mentioned that like with the artists that sometimes you work with, maybe you go to see them at a date they're playing here or there. I
yeah,
mean, are your services available? Should they, let's just say that they've got a moment of like, hey, I haven't had a moment of weakness, but I'm thinking about having a moment of weakness,
yeah,
and can you come to the rescue? I'll be in Florida this weekend.
yeah. No, that's
And
definitely happened. That's definitely a part of back to the lady on the plane. That's definitely part of carrying heavy things.
sure.
Is so being able to get a hold of me on my phone, knowing how to reach me, and occasionally getting on a plane and meeting them where they're going to be, to really help them walk through that space. That's all part of all the strategies that are at our disposal to
Sure.
help us do what we're doing. But yeah, I mean, look, I mean, this is part of what I was saying earlier. It's like we consumers, fans of music, like we can really esteem the music makers and the performers to a point where we really begin to make them into caricatures of
Yeah.
their true selves.
A
We turn
thousand
them into
percent.
objects, of admiration and almost like worship,
Sure.
And so it's kind of this feeding frenzy, right? Like we can get into this space where we're kind of doing this to the artists and sort of creating that space and putting them on these unfortunate pedestals in that way. And
Sure.
then the artist can kind of use that to make themselves really great. And it
Mm.
really is just a spiral down, right?
Yeah.
And so part of one of the, I always try to work with artists on really defining why it is they're doing what they're doing.
Hmm.
So this gets back to that question of fame. It's like if an artist comes in here and sits in my office and anything a part of the reason why they're doing this is fame and wealth and trophies,
Hmm.
I began to really help them deconstruct that,
Oof, yeah.
because those things just aren't weighty enough to do this noble thing, which is making and touring your music. And if you don't have a clear why,
Yeah.
you'll get into these situations that you just described, and there's so many distractions. There's so many dead ends
Yeah.
that you can get into, even if you're a single man in those spaces, hooking up night after night. And if you're on a, 50 city tour
Yeah.
and you have, you have partners in 50 different
Sure.
towns, like that's just a bad way to live. I
It's
mean,
hard on the soul.
it's
Yeah.
hard on the soul. And
Yeah.
so it's like if you're serious about wanting to do this thing called music, then you have to be serious minded about why it is that you're doing it.
Right.
And we have to be aware of the distractions and the pitfalls and call them out for what they are.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's obviously it's important work, and because there are people I'm sure that are calling you at all hours of the night saying, "Hey, I
Yeah,
could,
sometimes.
yeah,
Yeah.
I could use a friend right now," and
Yeah. Hmm.
which is it's good. It's good that you're on the receiving end of that for them.
Hmm.
So all that to say, this help, it does not come for. I mean, it's free, but but it does not come without cost. Let me just say that.
That's well said, Nate. That's exactly right. We often say that very thing. It is free of charge. And let me just say the reason why it is free, because first of all, we've done some quick research on this. The average sort of full-time touring artist is is not touring and selling out Bridgestone arenas across the
Right.
country.
Right.
So their income levels are far lower than what most people may think that they are. So it being free of charge definitely removes the barrier for people who would maybe struggle to pay for something this tailored for them. But the big reason why it's free of charge to the artist and their spouse or partner is because we want this to be a completely transactionless space.
Yeah.
We want this to be the one place they come and no, they don't owe anybody anything. And so we really work hard at creating that kind of environment for them. And that's part of the reason why our founders, instituted that. But you're exactly right. It costs to have good help in the house here working.
Yeah.
And so thankfully, over the 24 years that we've been in existence, we've gotten help from the industry. So major record labels and management houses and agencies and production companies, all of them have come in and continue to come in and support the work we do. Just benefactors, art people who love art and music, individuals and families and foundations around the country and around the world have supported the work of Porter's Call. And then while we never solicit the artists themselves who come for our services, some of our biggest single donors have been artists who turn around and give back, to kind of pay it forward,
Sure.
uh,
Totally.
to for the future. And our big we mentioned this offline, but we have every year for the last 16 years, we've had an event here in Nashville called the Evening Stories. And the last several years, it's been on the campus at Belmont University at the Fisher Center. And this year on September 16th, we'll be there again. And this is an amazing night. It's an inspiring night. It's people love coming to this event. They're inspired with hope and storytelling and music and song. They hear the story of Porter's Call, um, and it's our single biggest fundraiser of the year.
Mm,
And so we have sponsorships, people who sponsor the event that help really make it happen, and then we sell tickets. And then we have when we're actually at the event, we'll have an ask where people have an opportunity to give before they leave the building. So it's a really great night. It goes a long way at helping us keep our doors open, and people are inspired to be there, which is that it for us. That's as much as it is a fundraising. We just love connecting with a community like that through that event. So
sure.
September 16th, we'd love to have all of you there. So.
Well, and it looks like you guys have got a great lineup, and I'm sure you have no shortage, of relationships to pull these things together and to make these events, like you said, special. And for those that may be listening and maybe they are new to Nashville or
Yeah.
they kick around Nashville. I mean, nights like that when you have a songwriter tell you the story
Hmm.
behind the song, it really just changes the way you frame it. You'll never listen to
Yeah.
it again. And so
That's right.
so it's a really cool thing. And well, let me ask you this, and then I won't keep you. But if there's somebody that's maybe hearing this and they are on the fence
Hmm.
about getting some kind of help or some kind of assistance,
Yeah.
from you all, what would be your encouragement to them, and what's your hope for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing I'll say is that there is help out there. I mean, we not only represent means to that end, but we know a lot of people and have a lot of friends doing a lot of great work. And so there's no reason why anybody who's listening to this should not find the help that they need. And even money's not an issue because there's so many different ways to pay for and get access to grant money for the help that people need. So what I would just simply say is like the first thing is if this person's wondering, I wonder if I'm eligible to go and receive the services that Porter's Call provides. They just need to go to our website, porterscall.com, and they just fill out a form there. It's an eligibility form that Mar, our hospitality coordinator, reviews and goes over. Um, if they are eligible, then she begins to set their appointments with the porter here at the house. If they live elsewhere, then we do them virtually over Zoom or whatever is easiest for the artist. And then if they're not eligible, if the person is, let's say the person is basically the hired drummer or the banjo player for the band, but they're not actually a member of the band. So they wouldn't be eligible for our one-on-one care. However, we have a magnificent referral list and we have access to grant money
Mm,
that can offset the costs and get those people plugged into the care that they need. And
yeah,
so, even if they're not certain, if they reach out to us, our office will help them um, get access. There's organizations like Music Cares that the Grammy Association underwrites, Music Health Alliance here in town in Nashville. There are groups like that that are positioned to help people from all the different points inside the industry. Whereas at Porter's Call, we are serving the touring artist, him or herself, and their spouse or partner. So
I love that. Well, and you said it earlier, that a lot of the artists that you're working with, they deal with loneliness and just
mhm.
that isolation. And I think that sometimes, and I think that's universally true
That's true.
of everybody.
It is true. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and I have a friend that I've kind of reconnected with here recently, and he was isolated. He was on an
Mhm.
island, and it's hard sometimes to just say, hey, I need to raise my hand and I need to.
Yep.
So yeah, I want to just echo what you said, Chad, and just like, if you need to reach out, if you're an artist in this community and you think you would qualify, go to porterscall.com. If
Yep.
you're someone that's listening to this and you think, hey, I think what they're doing is really great and I want to contribute, I think you could probably find a way to do so also on the
That's
website.
amazing. Yes, you can
And
do that at our website as well. Thank you for
absolutely.
bringing
And thank you guys for what you're doing because, for the music community, I know that they want to create and they want to make art that matters. And for you
that.
guys to support them and hold their hand, along the way is pretty special work. So Chad, thank you so much, man, for jumping on Hitting the Road with me. You've been wonderful, man. We hope to stay connected to you in the future. Again, thanks so much for jumping on.
Oh, thanks so much, Nate. And thank you for having a podcast that talks about these important things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, take care.
Thanks, Chad.